Previously on the Inja's channel.
Today, by popular demand, we are starting our first giveaway series. This is a 2002 Ducati Monster 750. So we actually got most of it in. We're still waiting on the batteries. Welcome back to the start of this build. It's gonna be epic. This is our 2002 Ducati Monster 750 that Lord Kurt and I are gonna be electric converting. We're gonna be tearing this thing apart. We have a lot of the parts in for it already. Still waiting on the batteries, but that's pretty much it. They should be in the next couple weeks. So let's pull it in the garage and just get straight to freaking work. Lord Kurt got this from his brother-in-law. And the reason why it was in his garage is because, well, first of all, he laid it down and he was planning to pick it up at some point again, but he just let it sit until he could get the tank repaired.
Yeah, and at that point, the fuel filter went out.
Right.
So without fixing it, you can't sell it for value. So we said, hey, look, we'll pay you pretty much value because the value to us isn't in the engine.
For sure.
So
yeah.
fuel pump, whatever is wrong with it, no sweat.
Yeah.
We're getting rid of that.
And I mean, nothing was damaged besides the tank. And again, this is something
is absolutely straight. Nothing about it has any signs. Just this. And
it was a fairly low speed. He just set it over. He had a frame slider and everything. That is, I mean, it's a solid frame slider that took the entire impact. There was literally no damage anywhere else. So it was all just taken on the on the handlebar. Of course, the handlebar went into the tank here like every single laydown does. And then it was just on here. So there's no structural damage, no even cosmetic damage. It was literally just this frame slider.
Our goal today is take everything that's gas off. If you guys are looking for a 750 engine, everything that works,
dude, hit us up
from us.
Yeah, we're selling a lot of this stuff off.
So everything that is not part of the conversion is looking to be sold.
Up for sale. That's right. Cool. All right, well, let's get straight to work. Let's start tearing this thing apart and figuring out what we have to do. I didn't look at this. Lord Kurt said that there's the swing arms attached to the.
Yeah, oh wow! So you can see this back
into the engine somewhere.
Crankcase,
yeah,
is just part of that structure.
Interesting.
So we have to put together a thing that bolts in to the top part here, and then that allows for a structural point there.
So we'll figure that out. Let's just start tearing this thing apart and see what it looks like.
When you guys see it with the wheel off, you'll know why.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the swing arm didn't attach to the frame.
Exactly. All right, let's get to work. We just got something real special. Batteries for the Ducati. We got the most important part, at least cost-wise, of the build. We got all the cells in. It took roughly, how long you think it was, a month and a half?
Not as bad as I thought. So
yeah.
I ordered these same cells a month earlier than you, and I got them the day before you. So it took me a lot longer to get mine than it took you to get your. Two that were crushed on the end there, the caps you can see just got in shipping that wouldn't fit into one of the cell holders. Otherwise, nothing wrong with those. And we had one that actually leaked some electrolyte out. You could see that it, washed out that stamp, and it had a leak that came out of the bottom right there. So it's just 15 by 6, and then you can see the way all the parallel groups are lined up, and we'll stack them end to end, and it'll sit in the bike this direction. I'm going to put them in their positions now. I'm not going to do any wiring on them yet. I did make a 24 volt test pack for a scooter yesterday. and it was a pretty smooth process. But when they go in their grids, it actually looks really cool. So I'm excited to show you guys what it looks like. I mean, it's totally electrically isolated. Nothing is touching anything. It's the best long-term design. These cells, in spite of the fact that you get some bad ones, and all they were is self-discharged in the most part, you know, and if they've got a 2-month ship time, you get the advantage of knowing which ones self-discharge, which ones don't. So ones we have here are all between 3 volts and 3.28 volts. So they're all gonna stay, you know, you charge your bike up, it's gonna sit there for months on end without losing any charge.
Kurt. We have a finished battery pack, fully operational. Here's the man. Thank you. All right, Lord Kurt, let's talk through this thing. This is a masterpiece right here. Biggest battery to date that we have built. You have built. I'm not going to even say we. Okay. If you want to just run us through what you did, just show us in detail everything you did. Let's do it.
Yeah. So this one's about the same size in total, a little bit larger than the combination of the two that are on the Honda CB750 conversion we did. So this one unit will put out slightly more power and more longevity than that one does. It's a really interesting design. I think it's about as efficient as you could possibly put it together. Obviously, I have it in 3 different modules. I set it up so I can put the BMS in one of the modules, so this one's a little bit shorter. But each of these is connected in series. These cells, we have 8 cells per parallel group. And so what that looked like, because this is actually a 6-cell grid, I'm not sure if you can see easily there, but it's only 6 cells wide. And so what that meant is, and you could probably see this on the time lapse a little bit, but it went from 6 and then 2. So a parallel group actually looks like 2 rows. And then the one below that would obviously mirror it. But then in the weird space, I got to do a grid of 4 and 4. So what I had to figure out then was how to have the series connections make so that each cell had a similar resistance to the next parallel group. And so I actually had to run bus bars of different lengths across at different angles, trying to make sure that from each cell there was not any more resistance on one cell than there would be from another cell. That way they each are able to contribute even amounts of electricity so that one doesn't wear out faster than the others, that kind of thing. So I think I did that pretty successfully. Every bus bar group from series connection is more than 2 gauge total. I think it's like, I want to say it's like 1 aught total. It's a pretty large amount of copper between. So there's going to be no heat buildup, no resistance, you know, relatively within the pack itself. Between the modules, I actually had to get a little more creative. And this one is a little bit, this is kind of the best example of the creativity. But from this pack here, I had to jump from the bottom here up to the top of this one. And so I had to actually run cables. I got 4 of these cables. They're 8 gauge each. and those cables are going to run from this bottom parallel group up to this top group, which allows the electricity to go obviously through the pack, right? And then it'll jump up to here, and then it flows along this way. And then at the bottom, I just had to jump these two together. They were actually connected like this. So then it'll flow up through the top here. Positive discharge and charge is here. Negative discharge and charge actually comes out from right here. You see one negative. So this group of cells is actually the negative discharge. So it's actually buried deep within, but you can see this cable here is coming off of some bus bars that I put in. Each of the locations where I had a parallel group jump across the pack to another parallel group, I put a bus bar across that whole set of cells on each side so that it could just send electricity, you know, from wherever it was in that pack to the other group. But at the discharge points, I triple thickened. I put a 3 thick bus bar because I'm running a bus bar all the way across the pack and I'm discharging off one end. And so I wanted to make sure that it just had as much capacity as possible flowing across that way. Obviously there's still the 8 gauge bars that I put on there, so there's just a lot of copper. Idea being, again, just no place for heat to build up. It's going to actually be an open air structure, so I'm going to have these sides relatively exposed to the box itself. The box is going to be aluminum. I did at every contact point create a fiberglass cap, which you can see pretty clearly there. I have one for the bottom, one for the top, and then I'm going to also probably put a plastic case across each of these balance wires, which we'll talk about in a second. The goal obviously being I don't want any place for those objects or any place where there's a electrical component to touch the side of the case, but I also do want it to have as much airflow as possible because the case is aluminum, and so that's a really good conductor of heat. So any heat that builds up here immediately hits the edge, flows away. So it's going to be passively cooled pack. It's going to be just air cooled. We don't need anything more than that. It's got gaps between each cell, straight to the side walls, which are aluminum, right in contact with the airflow, so there shouldn't be really any risk ever of heat building up. Each of the cells also is rated for, they say 75 continuous amps. The reviews that I found, it was up to 45 continuous that somebody had tested. It had no issues. 45 amps continuous out of each of these puts us right at about what our max discharge peak is going to be. So we really shouldn't see any situations where there is a higher demand for electricity than these can produce in a continuous way, let alone what it could do at a peak. We should see relatively little voltage sag, which will make sure our top speed's as high as it could be. It'll also make sure that we don't have, any voltage sag you have is because of resistance, and as resistance occurs, heat builds up, you start to have, heat issues, and as the heat goes up, the amount of capacity these can produce actually starts to go down. So I just want to make sure it was all over-spec'd. It is well over-spec'd. We're going to see some pretty good production out of this. So yeah. BMS is just an 80 amp BMS. What that means obviously is we're not going to be running it for discharge. It's just a charge BMS. So the balance wires that come off of here obviously are going to be balancing at all times, but it'll only be able to cut off power to the pack when it's charging. What that means is we need a discharge cutoff. Fortunately, all controllers have discharge cutoffs. You just program them in. You don't need to worry about that, so there won't be any issues with this. Again, it's bypassing it for discharge means no heat buildup. We're only going to be charging it by design initially at 32 amps, which will charge this whole pack in 4 hours. So it'll have a 4-hour recharge time with the charger that we have. You could go higher, up to 80 amps, because the BMS is set for 80 amps. At 80 amps, it'd be about an hour and a half charge.
Dang,
so
that's awesome.
You'd have to obviously spend the money for a big charger. If you want the one that we've got, great, no worries, 4 hours, plug it in your garage, you're all good.
Which is still pretty quick, for what you're getting on.
Yeah, that's not, you could charge it in a half a day at work, you'd be full charged to go home, Yeah. So you're not going to really need, I wouldn't ever do anything faster than that, honestly. And the slower you charge your packs again, longer they last for. So every time you do a 1 hour recharge, your cycle life probably goes down by about 2 rather than just 1 that it normally would have been, right?
Right, yeah.
So you want to make sure you're always slow charging if you have the option to. But this BMS will also be allow for fast charging. The balance wires, I had to be real careful with how I attached them. Obviously, the ones that came out here were easy. I had to just run them down right with every BMS. You don't need to look at schematics; they're all the same. The first black wire coming off the pack, is always for 1 negative. Then everything after that is just 1 positive, 2 positive, 3, all the way down the line up until you get to 32 positive in this case, because it's 32 cells in series. Easy for this one, right? Because I just had to run them down and keep them in order. When the first cell negative, I actually tapped in here. Interestingly, I had to put the packs together before I put the BMS in. I can't put the BMS in if I don't have access to the copper on top of the cells, the terminals. So what I did is I actually drilled holes through each of these brackets, and I put in I'm not sure if there's a good place to see one. Let me see. Right, you can see right there. I drilled holes and I tapped a wire through and attached it to the terminal before I put them together, which then meant I just had to solder onto that wire that existed there, right? So each of these you'll see a little solder and a heat shrink because I had to have the wire through before the plastic insulator went together. And I had to obviously insulate it before I put these together. I would just have a massive explosion. Just this 16th inch thick ABS plastic, but I've also got about a 1/4 inch of rubber between each of these 2 packs, and then just plastic on the sides here, with obviously fiberglass on the outside, so it's going to be plenty of stuff between the aluminum and this. For the ones on this side, and I'll spin this around so you can see the other side.
About how heavy is that pack, do you think?
I would say it's about 160 pounds right now.
Dang.
So it's pretty big.
It's pretty big.
These ones, I had to run a bundle of wires over before I could then drop them down. I had to make sure I had the right wire that went to the right cell off of here. So I had to be really careful that I lined them up in order as I pulled them through. And so you can see on each of these, there's a big, just an array of them from, in this case, 11 positive through 22 positive, or I think 21 positive, 11 to 21, 22 to 32, right? But from there, I was able to just drop them down to the same thing. So I labeled which one was which. I had to be careful, right? Because 11 positive was actually on the 11th and 12th connection. So those 2 things are connected in a series. So 11 positive and then 12, 13, right? You can just see it going back and forth as it goes down. Interestingly, at some point, the BMS didn't have long enough wires. So I jumped off a larger gauge wire just so the resistance was lower. And I finished that run as far as I needed to. And you can see I did a whole set of jumps here as well. But any place I had to extend, I just extended with a larger cable so that it didn't have any extra resistance as it went down. Not much larger. I think it was just like 2 gauges on the larger side. Each stage just takes so long putting a battery together that you don't realize until you're done how much time actually went into it. I've also got a fiberglass cap for the top cutout, which will go on like this. The discharge cables, which are these 2 ones here, will come straight up through that cap, so that way when you put this will be the front of it, this will be right here, right? It'll come straight up, the controller will be right there, you won't see any wires coming off the battery or the controller, it'll all be hidden. The controller will be invisible underneath the tank. The charge cable will actually come out the side right here. So you'll have a little port on the battery sitting right there where you can just plug in your charger to. And that will be these 2 wires coming right off of here. So on the case, there'll be a charger right there. So this is a 102 volt nominal pack. It's a 32 series lithium iron phosphate, 3.2 volts per cell. What that charges up to at a peak voltage is like 116.8. Normally with lithium iron phosphate, there's a really steep discharge from 116 down to like 110, 109, somewhere in there. And then it's super linear all the way down to about 98, I think, in this voltage here. Normally it'd be like at about 3 volts per cell, it's going to start to drop off real quick. And so we'll have a really level discharge at that point, so you won't see much top speed variation until it's totally discharged. It might drop down probably, from 105 mile an hour top speed to like a 95 mile an hour top speed probably. Still, unless you're really wanting to go over 100, you won't be able to do that.
The entire battery.
Yeah, a full discharged battery, it'll probably be in the 90s, would be what I would guess. But other than that, it's really linear. So that's one benefit of lithium iron phosphate. Obviously, they're heavier per kilowatt hour, and so this pack Could have been lighter if it was a lithium polymer battery or a lithium ion battery in a traditional lithium ion setup. But it has longer cycle life. So this will be able to go about 2,000 cycles compared to the 500 to 1,000 that a lithium ion would have done, or just a couple hundred that a lithium polymer would have done. And so in a bike that gets 100 to 200 miles per charge, mixed riding, I mean, you're going, I don't know, what is that, 200,000 miles? Up to 200,000 miles before the battery's dead. I mean, it's 100,000 to 200,000. So this will last you as long as any street bike out there does. Yeah. So that's the big benefit of lithium iron phosphate. Discharge obviously also is a little bit higher. If you were to average them out, these are a little bit lower discharge lithium iron phosphate cells. If you were to get like a headway cell, it could do 200 amps continuous each. These can't do that. These will do 45 confirmed. Hypothetically, they say 75. Never need to though, because we got so many in parallel. That's the goal. Each of these cells is rated at 15 to 16 amp hours. So that's gonna be between 120 amp hours and 128 amp hours, just depending on mostly like temperature and how much you're asking of them. But in a perfect ideal conditions, they can get a little over 16 amp hours each. So with 8 in parallel, obviously that gets us up to 120 to 128. The Honda CB750 is only 120 amp hours on a good day between those two packs. And I was just measuring it actually. This one is only slightly larger than the main battery case on there is. I think mostly because I was so efficient with how it was all laid out. Like, you can't pack this much stuff into a smaller space. I'm, now that we've got to this point, just gonna throw the cap on, seal it off, put these through, and then I've actually started mocking up the case for it out of cardboard, because I don't want to cut up our aluminum plate without knowing for sure it's going to be the right dimensions. And so I'm going to run a full cardboard mock-up, make sure that fits. And then once that's done, we'll cut it out and we'll start fitting it into the bike. I'm pretty confident, but there's always that little bit of like, I should probably just do it. So we'll make sure everything fits. It's going to be a 20-pound case, so it'll be pretty easy to like fit it in the right place and get all the right places for tubing where the rod can go through. Basically, it's going to be providing the same structural strength the engine did. So I want to make sure that I can get everything lined up perfectly, and doing so with an empty case compared to one with a battery in it, way better. At that point then, once I get the battery in, it's just connect one thing, swing it up, and then it's going to all just bolt right through. So like my plan is like put a tube here and here, let's just say. So then I have a tube that will be on the battery that will just run through. So I'll actually have to weld a little circular point on each of these where the rod can then go through. But when that's done, then what I could do is just swing the back end up and put one, on the same way through the back. And then each place that I have an opportunity to put one through, I'll put one through, and I'll attach little things on the outside of the case itself. So it'll really just have all the same attachment points and more that the engine had, just to make sure the strength is all just as good.
Definitely drop some love. Put Kurt's PayPal if you want to PayPal him some money.
I give you my Venmo.
Because I don't pay him. I don't pay him. He does this for free labor.
He did give me a good Christmas present.
Oh, dude, you want to show him?
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
2015 Dodge Challenger. Got it detailed, so it's all airing out right now because they've shampooed everything. So it's real foggy last night in the car.
I bet. That's going to end it for this video, I think. With the battery done, we can now finally move on to a lot of the other things that need to be done. I personally will be getting this tank all figured out, hollowed out, repairing the dent in it, and probably wrapping it. I think we might even wrap it matte gray or something really cool and like high class kind of stuff. Got to mount the tire. I will also personally be figuring that out, and then just a couple modifications on the swing arm, and then Lord Kurt's got the mounting and everything with the battery case. But that's pretty much it, and this battery could be yours. Did you know that? So head over to injagiveaways.com. You guys do know that this is a giveaway series, so when we finish this bike up, one of you guys is taking it home for yourself. So basically every dollar you spend at the merch shop is one entry to the giveaway, obviously. So go check that out. As we get rolling on this project more and you see the completed project, I think you guys are gonna be so much more stoked than what it is now, but still, go check out that link. Get in the giveaway right now. I think you might even, if you sign up for the newsletter, get extra entries. So just go check that out. Whoever's watching right now, I hope you personally win this. And so that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Smash that like button. Give Lord Kurt some love. His PayPal account is right here. So, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Lord Kurt. Thank you, you guys. We'll catch you guys next time.